All right, on this episode of Players in the New School, I welcome Amber Nichols. She is the assistant GM for the Capital City Go-Go out in DC, and she used to play for the University of Richmond. So thank you for being on today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How is it, how is the team handling being in a pandemic right now?
Our guys have been pretty good overall with handling what's going on. I think at first, not having basketball as an outlet kind of stressed them out a little bit. But, once some of the restrictions eased where they were, I think a lot of them appreciated just being able to be back in the gym again. So it kind of uplifted their morale. But other than that, they've been pretty good with handling it, professional as always. So it's been good.
Yeah. And how have you been handling being in the pandemic as far as your role goes?
I've been good. We found out last week that our season was officially canceled. So a lot of my role right now is just preparing for next season and what that may look like, and just being patient and waiting on any news or instruction that's coming out from the league about, what potentially next season could look like, and just trying to prepare for that in the best way possible. But other than that, I've just been spending time with my family and honestly just doing a lot of personal enrichment stuff, looking at teams, players, and just learning because I rarely have downtime. So I'm trying to take advantage of it and trying to come out better when this is all over. So that's my process.
Now, talk a little bit about, before we get into too much of your role, talk a little bit about your journey to get to the position you're in now, because I believe you started off in team sales, I believe.
I started off in ticket sales in Sacramento, selling season ticket memberships to people. And I was there for about 10 months before I finally got my first opportunity in basketball ops. And, sales wasn't my intention, but when I was coming out of grad school at Georgia, I was applying for basketball operations positions and internships. But at that point, I really didn't have the experience outside of playing myself. And I really, hadn't established a network that could, help me get over there. So I figured that if I took a ticket sales job, that I would have, 41 chances, because, each NBA team plays 41 home games, to be able to network with other teams. So that was my way of looking at it. And I ended up choosing Sacramento because it was 3,000 miles away from where I grew up and where I'm from. So I kind of wanted to put myself out of my comfort zone and just grow in all aspects. And so that's what made me move to Sacramento.
I guess with me, I've always wondered, when people look back at their journey, and you're kind of really reminiscing on it, when young people ask you, especially college students, when they approach you, mind you, you're young yourself, excuse me. So, but, when college students approach you and ask you, how do I get in this position? What do I need to do? What's the best advice you normally give students who are trying to get into sports?
So I have a lot of calls, and that's the biggest thing I try to do, is try to take people's calls. A lot of people reached out to me on LinkedIn to, learn about my journey, about my role. And I'm always open to do so, because when I was in their position, I was doing the same thing. But honestly, my advice is to be creative and be patient. A lot of people aren't really willing to take the ticket sales journey. And honestly, I understand why, because you don't want to get, stuck in that area of the industry. But I would say be creative and find a way to showcase your knowledge, even if you don't have an opportunity right away. And then just be patient, network, try to go to places where, you can get FaceTime with executives and people, and don't be afraid to talk to anybody, that's on the team, because you never know, who they're connected to. A lot of people simply go straight for the GM. But I mean, you could talk to the equipment manager. You never know. They might have, a resource and be a resource that might be the one that actually ends up getting you the opportunity. So, just be humble and always, make sure that you're willing to talk to anybody within the organization. And my second piece of advice would be, don't really ask for an opportunity right away. Just really get to know the people that you're networking with, make the relationships genuine.
Yes.
able to stay in constant communication with them. And then, if opportunity presents itself, you might not even have to ask. Just the fact that you were genuine with them the whole time and they know your experience and what you're capable of, they might have you in mind before you even, reach out to ask them for opportunity. And that would be my advice.
That's real. That's been my experience too. Just, people keeping you in mind. Plus people, thing about it is as long as you are hustling, because a lot of what working in sports is about hustling. And I know we're interviewing Amber, but I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there because it's been a lot of our experiences, in sports. And it's so funny because even though I've had brief history working with teams. So for me, I definitely can attest to that, and that people, it's not even just that people will keep you in mind, but they will give you a great reference. So, that's why when Amber talks about making sure you have these genuine connections, that's one of the, it's definitely one of the reasons why you want to make sure you're doing that. Now, sometimes we often look at the politics of sports and, you do not see too many Black women at any position, especially executive level positions today. I think teams are starting to be more conscious of that, about what their diversity looks like on their teams. And I was curious, I shouldn't say what has your experience been, but more so, talk about how you've just in general had to overcome adversity as a Black woman working especially in basketball.
Yeah. So I would say in my inside sales class, I was probably one of two Black females. So right off the bat, I understood that I was the minority, and I had to work twice as hard, and be not more professional, but I had to be cognizant of my reactions and stuff like that in the professional setting. And then when I got to the Wizards, I was not only just the only female intern in basketball ops, but I was the only Black female intern probably that they had in a while. So I just, used that to my advantage. I worked, twice as hard, as the people I interned with. I would show up early. I would beat the GM there. I would, do anything I could to separate myself. But then also just in terms of basketball, like I think when I was first getting into the industry, I was scared to speak up because I felt like I would automatically, be discredited because I was a woman or because I was a Black female.
Right.
So it took me a while to really get confidence on speaking up. But I think over time and just being empowered by the people that I'm led by, they tell me, basketball is basketball. You play basketball, so you generated a wealth of knowledge that a lot of people in the industry don't have because they simply didn't play.
Right.
So just being confident in that, and also just being, true to who you are. Like don't tone down, your personality or yourself just because you're a Black female. And I think as the industry is changing, I think, more teams will be, so accepting of that. In Washington, I could say I'm in a good environment and that, to accept me and empower me. I don't know what the situation is like, with other teams, but I mean, I think, especially with everything that's going on right now and this, wave of like change and empowerment, I think the environment is going to become easier for Black women to thrive in, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely see that. I think that's what's so dope is that like seeing that wave. That's really. I feel like we've been even before. I feel like when we talk about this wave of the movement, I feel like a lot of it had been gaining some momentum even before the protests. And just because I think with millennials, we're so different. We're so outspoken, and we empower one another. I think that's the beauty of it. I think, truth be told, I think there's a generation of, even though a lot of, and this may be controversial, but I think a lot of Black women who have come before us, although pioneers and we are grateful for everything that they've done, a lot of them didn't mind being the only ones in the room. And I feel like now a lot of us do mind being the only ones in the room. And we're like, come on, and I think it's so necessary because we understand the beauty in diversity and how necessary it is for an organization. And you really hit on something. You said this a few times when you talk about, you know, um, the type of support you've had that's empowered you. And I can't help but to think about the big bro and mentor Pops, Pops Mensa Bansu, and he is the GM for the Capital City Go-Go. And I see you guys. It's so, man, listen, it's so, every time I see y'all, I think big bro, little sis, it is so cute, man. And I see y'all, first of all, let me tell y'all something. These fits, they gonna get these fits off. They gonna get these fits off game day, and they not playing. I know y'all are in there talking about, I can see y'all now in there like talking about the socks. Talking about, Pops, what you doing with the socks today? What's going on? I can see you letting them know. I'm gonna light you up game day. I'm light you up. Is that a fun competition when it comes to the fits? Because I gotta know about the fit game first. What's that like when y'all are going talking about the fits?
So honestly, Pops really kind of influenced that in my second year, because in my first year, I mean, I was still, I was professional, but like when I was, for example, we don't really have any duties for the Wizards game. So like we just go, and any chance I get to watch basketball, I'm there. So when I would go to the Wizards games, Pops would show up in a suit, like head to toe in a suit. And I'm like, we're not working right now. He's like, no, you're always working. I would show up, in a biker jacket, some jeans, and some sneakers. That's my fit. I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? Like that's me. That's Amber. So, and because I have to be so business professional at our games and at in work. So when I get a chance to kind of dress down, I took the opportunity. But after he said that to me, I switched my whole game up. And I think going into this year, I tried to get my suit game up, and I tried to wear heels. I'm trying to wear hoop earrings, trying to be more girly, you know what I'm saying? So it started off as like sort of just like a personal growth thing. And then it started off like, okay, little sis is catching up to me now. And you know what I mean? So the fit I think you're talking about, we matched accidentally. So I get to the office probably like a half an hour before Pops, because I have a lot of logistical stuff to do on game day.
Okay.
So I remember like I had, my tan suit and my navy and red shirt and some, Gucci shoes. And he came in and he hadn't got dressed yet. He had stayed at the facility, I think to play or to get rehab or something. He was like, man, he just started smiling. He didn't say anything. He was just like, wait till you see my fit. And I was like, what did you do? He's like, just wait. So he gets dressed, comes down, and we're like literally matching. And everybody's like, yo, did y'all plan this? And we were like, nah, it's just, years of, not year, well, I guess 2 years of just, being around each other and like, just having similar personalities. It just happened. But he, taught me the importance of dressing to the T and, like having pride in how you appear in the work industry and stuff like that. So that's something that I learned from him, but it turned out to be fun.
Yes, I loved it. I was like, man, I look forward, I'm not gonna lie. I look forward to game days and stuff like that to see the fits. Cause plus, I'm not sure if you consider yourself a sneakerhead, but your sneakers are just like insane.
Oh yeah, no, I became a sneakerhead in high school, and it's bad. Like my closet is bad. But it's something that connects me more to the players. Like I work with guys from age 18 to 29 on a daily basis, and having sneakers to talk about amongst other things like music and what's going on and fashion and stuff, it just connects me more to them. Like they'll come into practice and I'll have on some Jordans or something. They'll be like, they'll just like start shaking their head like, yo, that's crazy. You got a better sneaker game than me. So I that's something that I take pride in. I think that's something that sort of separates me, as an executive, is I can still, keep that young, fun piece of myself that's relatable to the guys. So
For sure, for sure. I mean, I feel like any advantage, we have in this game, like, hey, go for it. I think it speaks to also too, I think far too long, I think the culture, you know, has made basketball what it is, right? Like we are culture, and so to be able to see that you're able to use as the, you know, a connection, um, to also enhance your job, I think is so necessary, and kind of goes back to what you were talking about. It's just like how we can bring our whole selves to the table now, and I feel like that's just so empowering. Um, so you know, when you talk about the younger guys and stuff like that, everybody's been kind of talking about, just because you hit on it, these younger guys, and now we understand, we're starting to see this shift now where a lot of players are starting to consider the G League before the NBA, right before the step before they go to the NBA, which is, I think, ultimately what, you know, we want. You know, you want the G League to be anyway, as opposed to when, you know, when they're coming straight out of high school. And a lot of players looking at G League, they're looking at going overseas. Probably more so even, well, now that the season's canceled, but I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts in terms of players, you know, kind of seeing this spike now, maybe, of players coming out straight from high school and actually considering the G League compared to going to college?
My thoughts on it are I think it's a pretty positive thing because it's providing, you know, another opportunity. College is not for everybody, and I don't think that athletes should be forced to go into college. And then honestly, I think, you know, I relate a lot to these athletes because, you know, when I was growing up, I wasn't a part of the wealthiest family. You know, I grew up with very humble, you know, upbringing, and if I had the chance to go and make money to put my family in a better position, I would, you know, relish at the opportunity to do that. So I think that the G League being able to provide that without, you know, taking away the opportunity for education, because these guys can still get a full college education. They just aren't, you know, at the institute full time. So I think that was a big part of it, is that they're not missing out on the education, but they are getting the opportunity to provide for their families earlier, you know, than they would have. And a lot of these guys were guys that were only going to go to college for 1 year anyway. So the system didn't reflect those guys. I think, you know, them coming to the G League and having dedicated player development and having, you know, NBA level facilities and NBA level coaching and NBA level mentorship is something that they can't get at the college level. And I think is going to be great to bring, you know, additional notoriety to our league. So, you know, I'm happy about it. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if more kids take advantage of it. But I mean, some kids grew up wanting to play in college. I did. And I'm not gonna knock those kids that still want to go, you know, play for a university. I think it's their choice, but I am glad that, you know, there's another opportunity for kids that don't really fit, you know, into that mold.
You know, and you know, it's interesting because when it comes to how basketball is evolving, especially, it's just a new generation of kids. Let me just say that. Um, we've really kind of seen, between the pandemic, you know, I'm not gonna lie, this pandemic has really brought out and exposed a lot. And it's forcing a lot of people to change their trajectory, to reform, just ask for reform. We're seeing it all up and through college sports right now. And especially when it comes to activism. It's become so major, and like these kids are starting to understand you know, they're starting to understand their voice has power, and that they have expectations of their coaches, because their coaches have expectations of them. Um, what do you think about, you know, kind of going back to the thought about, how players are looking at what their options are? You know, as we know, Mikey Williams, he recently talked about going to HBCU. Now, I know you did not go to an HBCU, but I was curious in terms of, what do you think about one and dones going to HBCUs and possibly changing the narrative almost, and where these dollars are going to?
So, I mean, I like the fact that, you know, players are, you know, realizing the power that they have. And I did go to a primarily white institution at the University of Richmond. But honestly, I think I made that decision because HBCUs are not bad schools. I just think that this is my suggestion. I think that the athletic facilities and the resources that HBCU athletic departments have, they need the money to I guess compete in the arms race for these type of prospects. So the only like reservations I have is that if he goes to an HBCU, like I want to make sure that he's not, for example, like losing the how nice the facilities are. Not saying that HBCU facilities are not nice, but like I just think that if NBA players or people of wealth rally around these institutions and sort of help their athletic departments get to that level of Duke or get to that level of Kentucky where you have a full-time chef and healthy food options, and you have a cryotherapy chamber in your training room, and you have a whirlpool and all these things that college athletes, especially college athletes, need, then I am all for it. And I think athletes should take advantage of that. Because I know when I was coming out of school, I didn't really consider a HBCU for that reason. Like I had tendonitis, as a sophomore in high school. So I was like, I need a training program that has adequate resources to help me get through my 4 years of college.
Right.
I think that's on us. I think that's on donating to these athletic departments, whether you're an alumni or not, so that, they can level the playing field with these larger institutions so there's not a drop. So if Mikey decides, oh, I want to go to North Carolina Central over Duke, that I'm not losing anything in terms of athletic facilities, because the coaching is like HBCU coaches can coach the schools, the athletic, the academics, like those are all up to par. Like maybe they need more academic resources, computers, tech, stuff like that for sure. But I know like in terms of athletes, like you just want to be taken care of as an athlete. So I think it's on us as the Black community to sort of support these institutions so they can start getting, these type of athletes. And then I think, the Mikey Williams of the world, them simply not just saying, I might go to an HBCU, but actually doing it, is the next step. Like it took a while for a kid to be able to say, I'm coming to the G League. You know what I'm saying? Jalen Green started that this year. So like it's gonna take a Mikey Williams or someone of that caliber to be able to start this new wave of players going, to a HBCU. But I think it's on us to make sure that we support these institutions so they can, rise to the arms race and, level the playing field in terms of, academic athletic resources. But other than that, I support it 100%.
Definitely. When you talk about, everything you've been going through and, everything that in terms of, I guess, where your trajectory of your career is headed, and the type of support you've had there, have you already been thinking about future career goals for yourself and what do you want to do next?
I mean, my ultimate goal is to be a GM. I've always said that. Soon as I came out of college, I was more specific about being an NBA GM. And in college, I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't know that's what a GM does. So I was, still trying to figure out exactly what the title was called. But, I want to run a team one day or, be one of the higher ups, running the day-to-day of the team. And, I'm very confident. I dream very big. Like, I know what I want my staff to look like. I know, what I'm saying? So I kind of pride myself on not just, saying what my goal is, but sort of having an attainable vision, in my head that sort of keeps me going, every day. So that's my ultimate goal. And I think today, Troy Weaver was announced as the GM for Detroit. And he makes like the 9th or 10th, African-American GM in the NBA. And there has yet to be a woman and there has yet to be a Black woman. So I know, it's a process and I have, a lot more experience and a lot more to learn, but, I think it'll happen one day.
And we believe it'll happen too. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm excited too, because the other day when we were texting, we've been texting. I mean, I want to say at least on IG for like some time now. And the other day when I think you said it was like your first, I can't remember if you posted that was your first podcast, and I just couldn't believe somebody had just finally reached out to you. And it's so funny because in my mind, I'm thinking she booked and busy. That's why I'm not bothering her. And I'm like, yo, this, I just thought it was crazy because I'm like, sis is history. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're out here doing it. And I'm like, I love to see it, especially in a city like DC that just embraces you. And I see so many of, you know, so many amazing women, you know, Christy Winter Scott, like Megan McKeith. I mean, it's beautiful to see y'all out there doing your thing. And I'm personally like excited for what's next for you. I think it's great that so many young people are getting to grow up and see so many amazing Black women in these positions. Where back in the day, I mean, it was like maybe because I mean, there's still a lot of situations where there's just one, but you know, to see more than one, and even just every now and then seeing brothers, you know, in these certain positions, because you know, like with Pops, you know, embracing and like bringing you in, and just I love seeing that. I I'm happy for you. I know that, you know, you're a friend of mine not so long ago. He works in hot politics, and he was telling a group of conservative individuals. He said, if you see a Black woman in a high ranking position, just know she worked her tail off to be there. Mm-hmm. And she probably worked harder than you to be there. So don't disrespect her, you know, and I feel like that was so necessary. I told him, thank you. I said that was so necessary. It needed to be said. And so I see you, proud of you. You know, if there's ever an opportunity that, again, we obviously can link up, I look forward to it. I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting you in person the next time I'm in DC. You know, I want to see what the fit looking like too. That's definitely gonna be a game day because I gotta see it in person. Is there anything coming up that we should be aware of as far as what you have going on, or any organizations that you're working with?
Not in the short term. I did just join the NAACP. I felt, you know, obliged to do so to, at the very least, you know, educate myself more on what's going on. So, you know, when this is all over and, you know, we start having meetings and stuff, like I want to be, you know, active and, you know, become sort of a voice, you know, in the DC community. That's something that, you know, I want to do. But, you know, I appreciate, you know, everything that you've done. You know, I, you know, watched from afar, you know, you and Ari Chambers. You know, Ari's from my hometown. You know, we've known each other for a long time, and like, you know, we've kind of fed off of each other in terms of like we've both just kind of, you know, elevated in our respective, you know, fields, and just seeing, you know, the increased level of support and awareness around the W has been mad dope. And honestly, being in DC and being around the Mystics every day, and, you know, watching their championship run, you know, like from close up last year was, you know, something that was really dope and a great, you know, experience for me. And like, we were all, everybody that's involved in the organization were at the games locked in. Like, it could have been, we were more engaged, you know, than probably the regular fans. It was like, you know, the Wizards were winning a championship. We were just as engaged as if the Wizards were playing, you know, for a championship. And to just see, you know, how far they've came, and, you know, how the perception of women's basketball and stuff is changing for the better has been something that, you know, I know you've contributed to as well, you know, as a lot of other people. And so I just, you know, want to say keep going, and it is not going unnoticed. And, you know, when I was little, I didn't really know a lot about the WNBA. And, you know, if I would have had, you know, somebody to read tweets like you or Ari and, you know, learn, it would have been, you know, probably a different path, you know, for me. So I just want to say to you and, you know, keep going.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate you. You know, it's tribe over here. So, you know, if you ever need anything, you know, I'm staying inspired by so many people like you, and of course like Ari. But Thank you. I appreciate that acknowledgement. Because some days it just be hard. You just like this is insanity. This is insanity. But I'm blessed, and I tell myself that all the time. Like when I look back and I think about my younger self and wishing I had, so I always tell myself, make sure you're inspiring the next generation. And it's crazy because I got to interview Camilla yesterday. I'm not sure if you know who this little girl is, but she's like, I want to say like 9 or 10 years old, and she has been like interviewing WNBA players, and so inspiring. I mean, I literally just started kind of weeping a little bit on the interview, and I'm not a crier, so I was just like so inspired by this, like this generation. Like, and plus she was just speaking better than most leadership I've heard in a while. So I'm just like, man, these kids, her parents do an amazing job. But thank you again for all your support. Even I'm not gonna blast your social media because it's all on lockdown. So what? How about this? Y'all follow the Capital City Go-Go. Y'all get season tickets. Go ahead and do that.
Like, I mean, social media to me, it's just it's an awkward situation for me when it's like people in my professional space, and then social media, it's like your outlet, it's like your reserve, personal thoughts. And in my bio, I want people to know, like, on my social media, I don't really promote myself as the go-go assistant GM. I'm just regular Amber, so I keep it, professional still. I'm not doing anything crazy on social media, but I just try to reserve that space as something where I can just gather my thoughts without worrying about who's looking at it and all that stuff like that. So
yeah, make sure y'all are paying attention, young ones. Make sure y'all paying attention. She giving y'all gems on that private account. It's gonna save a lot of y'all.
Well, kids, delete your tweets. First of all, don't tweet anything that's crazy like that. You should care more about yourself and your personal brand and how you're projecting to people, more so for yourself than what the consequences would be. But also make sure you scrub your tweets every now and then, delete them. If you said something, you were having a bad day and it wasn't directed at anybody, but it could be, make sure that you clean that off and just make sure you take care of yourself. Like Marshawn Brooks said, take care of your mental, take care of your chicken. You don't want to mess up your bread.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? You're the first person that has ever quoted Marshawn Lynch on here, so I appreciate you. Thank you.
Marshawn Lynch. I might have said something else, but yeah, Marshawn.
Yes, no, we knew exactly what you're talking about.
That on a different level, like, we're not gonna be here long, and so you gotta take care, control what you can control. So
yes, definitely, especially during these times. Definitely, I can attest to that. But again, thank you for being on. I look forward. This will not be the last time we interview you, so I'm looking forward to the next time.
For having me, I'm always down.
All right.
All right.